Thank you.
Mr. Laurie,
Wow. Audience, can you hear me?
This is the Twilight Zone.
Ray, can you drop that? That's better. Thank you very much and good evening, members of the Board of Education and staff. Especially good evening to our viewing audience. Whether you're watching this live or on tape delay, we always will ask our staff and board to speak slowly and clearly into the microphone so that you can hear it on our live streaming broadcast. We have, I know there's an event coming up later this evening that many of you are interested in participating in. I'm sure that I can tell you that it's the Yankees game and they're playing the Twins, and I'm looking forward to seeing that tonight more than anything. I understand. So, members of the board, I also want to point out that this is not Josh Allen sitting next to me. He is in California, even though you may get confused because they have very many similarities in their appearance. Having said that and wasting 2 minutes, I will tell you that there's two tasks that we'd like to complete. One is to review the NSBA resolutions with Becky's help and then go through the agenda for 2 weeks from this evening so that you have all of your questions answered. Maria will do a personnel report. I have just a brief opening of schools report that I'll share with you, and there's no need for an executive session this evening. So, Mr. President, it's that time of year that you review your NSBA resolutions. You were elected to a vote on the 17th of October at 4 p.m. and give the Niagara Falls District's recommendation for the 43 NSBA resolutions. I'm going to ask Becky to come forward and lead us through it. Judy Glasser will be our scorekeeper. All I'm going to say are the first 32 NSBA supports, the next 10 or so they don't, but Becky's going to try something new to eliminate the confusion and just ask you what you think, support or not support, and then we'll worry about what NSBA said later. So I know she can do this in good time. It's her second time. She's no longer a rookie. So Becky, go ahead.
Okay, I actually have an opening statement. So, and that is just that as I read through them, what I'm really looking to get from you, the board members tonight, is your response if you support the resolution or if you do not. And we can compile the results versus NSBA's support or NSBA's non-support of the resolution and send it to you at a later time. So it's only a simple, do you support it as a board or not? Should I get started?
Yep.
Okay, the first one is that the resolution is asking for fully funded state arts and music education as a common school branch to be incorporated into public school curriculum and provide more well-rounded education. Right now, the art and music is not a statutory requirement. So when most districts have to cut something, that's the first thing. Okay. The second one. Absolutely. Okay. The second one is that the New York State School Boards Association support meaningful reforms to the tax cap levy formula. An example is when the unintended consequences of when a cap goes negative, or in years like just past 6.3% CPI and a 2% cap. So.
That negative cap thing has to go.
Yeah, that definitely is a unintended consequence of the cap. That the support reforming the system of educator discipline to cap the length of time educators awaiting 3020A proceedings are paid. Right now, there is no cap. Okay, resolution 4 supports the state enhancing support for school districts in response to cybersecurity threats that endanger student, staff, personal data, and school safety.
Yes.
Pardon? Yes, this is asking for support, state-enhanced support for cybersecurity. Okay, then Resolution 5 is supporting a requirement that districts be fully funded to employ a sufficient number of mental health professionals, social workers. Okay. Number 6 is supporting a revision to transportation statutes to permit a school district to provide aidable transportation outside voter-approved limits, so long as doing so does not result in additional cost or the displacement of students otherwise entitled to transportation. Well, that one is a little confusing. It's like like hazard zones are a perfect scenario. Like we might bus someone that's only a half a mile from their school because we determine a certain area to be a hazard zone.
Like crossing railroad tracks.
Correct.
I would consider that a hazard for a young child, God forbid. This would support allowing us.
Aidable on that.
Allowing
Those
us to get
miles would be
aid.
aidable.
Because right now, we only get aid at 1.5 miles. If we deemed it a hazard, it showed proof. This resolution says we get aid if it was a half a mile.
Correct. For those areas.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's
Or it
interesting.
could be.
It could be a
place.
thing, Mike. If I'm thinking of what you're thinking about, just not to prolong this, because you know I can prolong anything, but there are places, I'm sure there are places that worry about kids going by a lot of sex offenders locations. That's come to this board a while ago, and I think that I'd consider that a hazard and bring that back to the board for support to get aided on.
The only reason I asked that is that we were pinpointing specific spots in the city.
Yeah.
Who is responsible for picking that, who's gonna pick the heat, that's all.
Well, I think if this passed, I would bring them to you and say, there's railroad tracks here, there's sex offenders' houses here. These 8 scenarios we've deemed are hazards. Yeah, that's how I would do it. I hope that passes.
Okay. Resolution 7, resolve that New York School Board support comprehensive reform of the foundation aid formula. Even though they are making full foundation aid funding, as of 23-24, we will be full. They're saying the formula itself that determines that amount of funding is outdated.
Well, Freeport, knowing Freeport, they're wanting more aid than I've been assuming. They're looking for a bigger chunk of aid and less aid to us. I'm using us for instance. That's
Exactly.
the way I interpret it.
It could very well be. So right now, what's happening is they're using old census data.
Right.
Yeah, the census data is outdated. They're using free and reduced lunch applications rather than direct certification.
Right, that's a big
Is
one.
that report a fairly well-off school district? Does anybody
I
know?
would have to look at their specifics, but they're,
So it's outside of Rochester?
yeah.
Very affluent, it's affluent, fairly affluent?
Freeport they always have resolutions on here that we usually don't support.
I like this one. I certainly understand your statement, Mr. Petrosi. There's only so much money in the pot. But the census, that even the funding we get is not current. And it doesn't include the increase in the number of ESL kids we have, the number of poverty kids we have, because they don't take the direct certification letters in terms of our aid ratio. And I would like to see this supported.
They're not giving any information what the formula would be.
No, but
No.
I think that would take work. I think that would take a lot of work to calculate an
Yeah, no, I'm just
equitable
trying to get an idea.
formula.
No, it's a good question. So, on the 22nd, the next board meeting, the Maisto attorney, this is their argument, that don't just fund the foundation aid formula, look at the formula for these kinds of things, and use ours as one of the districts that they're using, as an example of it, Rick and Maria have provided them a lot of information on why our district needs it, but change the formula, and that's what we're going to additional costs for in the Maestro case. You know what I mean? But they are not proposing the formula.
And the formula is very convoluted.
42
It is,
pages.
and they're saying that changes to the formula would make it more predictable.
Right,
So we would know what to expect.
right.
So you actually like it?
I like it.
I mean, that's,
I'm concerned,
okay.
okay? I'm concerned because I believe Fairport is a much wealthier
This is
district.
Freeport.
Freeport, not
Let
Fairport.
me look it up.
Oh, okay. Where's Freeport? Is it Rochester? That's Fair, I thought Fairport.
I know what you're thinking.
My apologies.
Fairport's a really
That's fine. I'm okay.
pretty town.
If it was Fairport, I would say I have my, you know what I mean?
I do.
I would read into it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's a yes.
It's in, I just happen to know this just because I study the towns. Freeport is a village in the town of Hempstead in Nassau County. It's got a south shore and the population's 43,713. It's a small city school district. The unemployment rate's 4.7, and when I call there, I dial 516 first. The average temperature, the temperature there today is 76 degrees. It's a small city school district.
Okay, thank you.
Just like to share when I know these background things. Yeah.
Okay. Number 8, supports universal pre-K for 3 and 4-year-olds statewide.
We get it, but some districts don't.
Okay, number 9, is petition the New York State Education Department and Commissioner thereof to include as a mandatory prerequisite to being employed by a school district in the state as a licensed security guard, that said individual receives as part of their training and licensure a separate and specific credential signifying training and knowledge of the laws, rules, and regulations applicable to school districts. In the rationale, they were saying like these people should be familiar with what a lockdown is and the reason for them, how to de-escalate situations, things that our director is doing with our safety officers.
Right.
But they're saying this should be mandated.
We're doing it already. Actually, you approved a short-term contract last month to do even more of this. So they're just saying this should be a requirement, Maria. I think if I'm reading that correctly.
Well, is that a pre-employment requirement or we're going to train
Yeah,
them?
it's a prerequisite.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough to find.
We're able to do it.
Would our safety officers fall under this? Because they're not licensed security guards,
Well,
are they?
they currently aren't, but Chief Del Porto has certification now to teach the course and bestow that on them. You're correct. But we are going to get them all certified this year.
Okay.
And we're lucky because you allowed us to appoint him, and he's got the certificate. Some other districts may find this hard. But there's nothing to preclude them from having a BOCES set up to go through this either, and have BOCES be the trainer. So, I again like it.
Okay. Okay.
To Mr. Bass's point, though, by the end of this school year, all of our who we call safety officers, will have this training, even if this is disallowed. They'll be certified if they pass the course.
Okay, so number 10, the association support raising the allowable undesignated fund balance for school districts. I should hope that's a resounding yes. Because right now we're at 4%. Others, 40 states in the U.S. do not have a restriction. The other 10 states in the continental U.S. that do, the other lowest cap is 6%.
Right.
So,
Well, this means that we can't put so much in workers' comp reserve, though.
no, oh,
Just making sure Mr. Petrosi's listening, that's all.
Anything with insurance?
I know. I'm just firing you up, that's all. You know what, if you, I shouldn't say it, but I always make Becky look at the other districts unreserved. They have 28, they do it no matter what the rule is.
But, and they get their hand slapped by
They get their
the
hand slapped and they move on.
auditors. Yep. Okay, number 11. Allow component school districts to hold the BOCES administrative budget vote and BOCES Board of Education election on a date of their own choosing between April 16th and April 30th, rather than a single uniform date selected by the BOCES Board of Education president. You
You
know,
know-
the BOCES meeting is always on a Tuesday. We always have to have our meeting date on that
This
Tuesday.
gives us flexibility, so we don't have to have
Yes.
that meeting the Tuesday before the Wednesday.
You would be able to vote on their budget on a date of your choosing between those dates,
Yeah. Right?
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, number 12. NISBA work with other associations and Office of School Personnel Review and Accountability to better develop systems, I apologize, that allow districts and BOCES to query or be notified when a Part 83 report or an investigation is pending.
I'm a big supporter of this. Maria, I don't know if you want to weigh in. Part 83, would you share?
Is that classified, correct, or no? Okay.
And oftentimes, we hear about some, we don't hear about others, we get closure, we don't get closure. We fail to get status reports, in my opinion, in a timely manner. And NISBA's asking to have a more clear-cut process.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a good one.
Number 13, resolve that NISBA work to make or add to existing law to make it a felony for a district employee to have lewd or sexual relations with a current student in the district regardless of age or consent.
Yeah. I think we might want to move on to number 14 there, Judy.
Yep. Number 14, New York State School Board supports amendments to the New York State General Municipal Law governing reserve funds to authorize school districts to be able to borrow from one or more of their existing reserves in times of in the need of temporary cash flow shortfalls. So that you could borrow from yourself, from a reserve, rather than having to do a revenue anticipation note.
So
and
that's like
pay
in the
interest.
summertime when we run short, you don't have to get the
Yes.
loan out, right?
Pardon? The- Well, right now, depends on the reserve. It depends on the reserve for the use, but you would normally approve use of a reserve at the time of the budget, when we go through the budget and show you the revenue side and how we're going to fund different things, like you allocated.
I think that's different, because that's the use of a reserve. This is
Right.
borrowing from the reserve with the intent to pay back. I'm reading this as short term.
Right, but I think, Mr. Capizzi, I misunderstood that. I thought you were asking if right now we need board approval to access a reserve.
Well, the reserve's a separate pool of cash, I'm assuming.
Correct.
Separate account,
Now, does this board have to vote to access that?
yes.
I think what you were talking about is overall budget lines that we approved as a whole.
Right.
Would we put a separate pool of money, do we have that slide?
If this is passed, because right now we're not allowed to borrow from our reserves. So if this were passed, I don't know if that would be a requirement or not. I would assume it would.
I would think so, because I'm
I
going to
would
assume
assume
most of
so.
those funds are restricted.
Yeah.
So I would say we'd have to approve the borrowing.
Mark, isn't there a time during the spring when we run short on money because the state isn't funding and we end up borrowing
Yep.
money? So
Grant,
this
yeah.
would alleviate us borrowing money and paying interest back. Now, would
It
we have
could.
to pay interest on that money if we borrowed from ourselves or not?
I don't know, they didn't give that much detail in this. This is a proposed resolution.
Well, you wouldn't pay interest to yourself, it's irrelevant.
Right, you borrow.
It's an expense and it's an expense and revenue that cancel each other out.
If it was proposed, if it was approved to,
It would save us interest. I think that's what you were going. No, go ahead.
2 points.
Oh, I know what you said, you borrow from your pensioner. Yeah.
And I'm okay either way. I'm just saying if we get into a budget crunch or another pandemic hits or
the
something
reason.
like that, we come into a meeting saying it's the superintendent's discretion or we have to call emergency meeting. That's all I imply.
If this passes, Mr. Capizzi, I would bring it to you in the form of a resolution. And if it was needed immediately for some reason, I would go to the president and vice president and ask to do that and follow it up with a resolution. But it gives us flexibility.
I think the confusion is here. There's two types of using a reserve fund. There's when you're using it in the budget, it's permanent. You're using the money, you're taking it, you're not intending to pay it back. Or at least not intending to pay it back anytime soon.
Correct.
Not within a year. It's long-term borrowing or long-term usage. We're talking about short-term usage, which means you intend to pay it back within a year. Okay, and that's what they're talking about, two different animals.
Yeah, it's for
But
cash
either
flow.
one of them would need board approval. Because right now you can't do it, and I'm sure if you take it out of a reserve, you'd have to come to us.
Right.
I believe.
It gives us flexibility.
I like it.
Okay,
Thank you.
It's like
Now-
borrowing from your wife.
Yeah, but she'll.
number 15 supports the adoption of legislation which would require the New York State Education Department to develop regulations providing oversight over special education. It just says parent and rules of conduct and enforcement procedures for same. But when you read the rationale, it's referring to parent advocates
Right.
that sit in on CSE meetings.
So about a year ago, Maria helped my memory. About a year ago, there was a parent advocate group, and the closest they got to us was Wilson, who was going around causing CSE meetings to be a real circus and a farce. Do you remember this group, Maria? I can't think of the name of it now. But this gives the district and the school board some protection against those parents. They were going into CSE meetings demanding things that really weren't appropriate for the child. And they were convincing parents to get these things, frequently going to impartial hearings and costing money to the district. This just gives some decorum to the special ed process. I think it's a good resolution.
Yes, it
Okay.
gives some structure for them to operate.
I can't think of the group's name. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Good, everybody?
Yes. You remember this? They got as far as Wilson. The word was they were coming here and they never made it.
Okay.
Okay, number 16, supports legislation at the state level that would allow for school board members to receive a stipend for their work as trustees.
Yes.
No discussion needed. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Number 17.
They can
And-
double it. They can, I think, triple it.
Pardon?
Triple the amount that they get now.
Yeah, I like that.
For 10 years.
Retroactive.
Should I propose the amendment? I'm going to propose the amendment.
Okay, number 17, that NYSBA joins statewide advocacy efforts to support healthy, high-quality school meals through the Child Nutrition Reauthorization, the CNR. Right now, we follow USDA guidelines, and there are a lot of regulations, and we're basically very well funded for our child nutrition program. Other districts are not.
Right.
So when they have to cut corners, they're worrying that they're taking away from student nutrition. So,
Yeah, he doesn't have it. Yes, Mr. Bass.
yeah, I would support
It doesn't impact us right now because we're a community eligibility school district because of our poverty. Many districts don't have that luxury, and,
So when they're gonna cut corners,
Right.
they're.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
So, Number 18, that the NISBA support legislation to fully fund or reimburse school districts for tax exemptions for veterans. Right now, it's at a district's decision. It's up to you whether or not to offer a veterans exemption. Most districts do not, because that's just a loss of tax revenue. So,
There's a very hot case in one of the BOCES districts about this right now. And the group is coming before the board every session because the board hasn't done this.
so I guess they're asking to treat it like you would the STAR exemption.
Yes.
To make a district whole
Yeah.
for that exemption.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, number 19, that you support legislation to fully reimburse districts for all investments in electrical buses, including infrastructure. Again, we don't own buses, so it's really not applicable to us at the moment, but it's up to you if you support it.
They should be making us do this. They should fund us. Schools.
So,
Not,
Shouldn't do it.
no?
Well, no, they shouldn't. Electric buses, forget
Well, I
it.
know, but they're gonna force feed it on us, so we might as well
Yep.
let them get
I'm
funded.
good.
is that a yes?
Yeah.
Okay. 20, support legislation at the state and/or federal level that would reform the current gun laws to strengthen background checks, implementing red flag laws, as well as laws that will restrict guns from those under the age of 21.
That's already on Kathy Hope's desk.
She already screwed that up.
Is it, so yes?
Okay, let's say one more time on that.
Number 20, it's supporting legislation at the state or federal level that would reform current gun laws to strengthen background checks, implementing red flag laws, as well as laws that will restrict guns from those under the age of 21.
They already did it.
What's that have to do with us?
There is a red flag law in effect now, correct? Yes. So,
Well, they're just,
Trying to make a statement?
well, I don't, it's already been done.
It doesn't say, yeah, it doesn't say.
Excuse me, the red flag law impacts us. I've asked for the red flag law to be enforced 2 or 3 times last year. Yes. It is on the books. Yes, that's correct. It was very difficult to have anybody move on that. Yeah. I think 3 times last year I asked for the police to go after the red flag law.
Okay, we'll support that.
I'm thinking security red flags.
Yeah. No, this is for kids that we were concerned about having access to weapons unsupervised.
Yeah, all right, yeah, we don't want.
okay?
Didn't result in anything, but
Yes.
Yes, right?
Okay. Support legislation to amend the education law to standardize the deadlines for filing of candidate petitions for the various categories of school districts. And I asked Judy if she would maybe be able to speak to that if you had any questions on that one.
So basically, being a city school district, we have slightly different deadlines than union-free or common or what other types of school districts. They're really kind of arbitrary because, we're a small city, but it really doesn't seem like these random deadlines serve any purpose. We have actually tighter deadlines for almost everything, for when candidates have to file, how many days before the election, all that kind of thing. So all it really does is jam me up on getting the ballots printed and all of that. So it really, I would say, is to my advantage if we were to get on the same timeline as our friends who are not small cities. Would give us a little more time.
So you like it?
I do like it.
Okay,
Okay?
it's a yay.
Yes?
yay.
Okay. So we're on to 22, and again, I'll probably
so
refer
far
to
you're on
Judy.
record pace, Becky.
Oh, that's.
Tim
my
Highland
goal.
took 17 hours one time.
This
Oh, I remember that
22,
one.
support legislation to establish the last date for candidates to file a petition after withdrawal of a candidate, so that such date is sufficiently in advance of the date of an annual meeting to provide school district clerks with enough time to prepare for the election, including printing of machine-readable ballots and absentee ballots. Again, it's basically the same thing.
It's the same kind of thing. Technically, if somebody has turned in their petitions and then they withdraw, they die, they become incapacitated, whatever, there's a very, very compressed timeline such that I could actually be required to have absentee ballots out and in the mail before I finalized the slate of candidates.
I think what happened in one case last year, the candidate moved out of his district, and his name stayed on, his or her name stayed on the ballot.
So we are supporting that. Okay, 23. Seek to initiate legislation at the state or federal level that would provide dedicated funding to be allocated for school safety measures, including staffing. If you read the rationale,
Yes.
they're referring to SROs. So that they would be funded. Okay. Number 24, support legislation that would provide finalizing the ballot for positions on a small city school district board on the day after a 10-day period for filing and reviewing of any objections to nominating petitions. That's a duty one.
So again, right now, our candidates are required to submit petitions 20 days before the election by 5 o'clock. But technically, the public has a right to challenge those petitions and say, this person doesn't live here, that's not my signature, or what have you. So again, it's just providing time so that the public actually has the right, can exercise that right in practice and not just in theory.
So
we-
supported, right, Judy?
I would say so.
Okay.
Okay, number 25, support legislation that would amend Article 18A of General Municipal Law to permit school districts at their option to be necessary parties to payment in lieu of taxes or pilot agreements. We get notices, we don't sit at the table when the IDA, gives pilots. And it can affect our tax cap calculation. We have to estimate what our pilot revenue is for the year when it gets factored into the tax cap calculation.
So it says, you might have read the rationales. The rationale, we are at the table negotiating these pilots? Or is it that we get paid directly from the pilots?
Not paid directly, but we do get paid directly from the pilots anyway.
Right, but what are they asking us
I think that we have a voice
in the pilots?
in the
Totally agree with
issuance of pilots.
Totally agree with that.
Okay. Okay, 26.
Right now, we get a notice to go to a hearing, right? Am I
Yes,
correct?
you're correct.
But we are not, all we are is a speaker at the hearing. That's right, we're not part of the process. Be along with the city and the county.
Okay, so number 26, support legislation that would align legal requirements imposed upon small city school districts with those of central, union-free, and common school districts. Again, it pertains to statutory deadlines and dates. Our reorganization
Yep.
meeting has to be the first week. Others, they have the first 15 days of July too. So you have
That's
their
fine.
reorg
Yes.
meeting. Okay, 27, support legislation that would require local school district consent for new charter school applications in districts with a large percentage of charter students.
We'd have to approve it? Is that what that means?
Yeah,
You would have to give consent,
Yes.
but depending on the percentage of charter students within the district, I believe that's what
I
that's
would
saying.
say yes, then we'd have to consent to it, okay.
I really think this is a strong yes,
Yeah.
if you want my recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
We've been fighting for something like this, like they should not put another charter school here.
Right.
Not just in the physical setting of Niagara Falls, but that siphons our kids for the lack of good education they get in the charters they go to. But I was editorializing at that last part. So I'm a strong supporter of this and would wish it would come to pass.
Yes, because right now, I think it's just a recommendation. I think the language is
Yeah.
over 5%, local district consent should be sought, but this way it would have to be sought, so.
Yeah.
Okay, number 28, support legislation that would assure equitable full-day pre-kindergarten funding for all New York school districts.
Yes.
Okay, number 29, support funding to expand New York State and industry-approved and certified career and technical education programs.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, number 30, support testing accommodations for students with disabilities.
I hope so.
Yes.
It's sunsetting.
Oh. Yes.
Okay, thank you. 31, resolve that the New York State School Boards Association oppose legislation expanding New York State's charter school laws. Do you
Yes.
support that? Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, number 32, support legislative changes that reduce the impact of New York State's charter schools on traditional districts.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep.
Record work, Becky. Here come the tough 10, but you got a plan.
The tough 10.
These are the tough 10
No,
now.
these are gonna be easy.
Becky's got an idea. Go ahead.
Okay, 33. Okay, support the proposed New York Health Act and any legislation at the state or federal level that provides single-payer health care for all
No.
New Yorkers. That
No.
was a no, and this is identical, this was on here last year.
With NISBA. Yeah. The-
Yeah, Judy's gonna take care of
The
that
Ni-
part.
the Niagara
We're
Falls-
only looking
The
to
Niagara Falls
support the
School District
resolution or
paddle
not.
reflects no.
Okay. Number 34, support
Oh.
legislation that requires every child in New York State aged 0 to 21 be covered for free under the Child Health Plus
No.
program. Okay, number 35 is support proposals, guidelines, and/or legislation in favor of local school district control and/or regional by county control over matters pertaining to safety protocols and operations regarding the prevention of spread of communicable illness.
This is an interesting one.
And I do believe this one may have appeared last year as well.
Well, I'm on record saying during the pandemic, with respect to masking and other procedures, you elected 9 members of a board who care nothing more in their world than protecting kids, safety and health first. Yet we're being directed about wearing masks, et cetera, et cetera. And I think these school districts are looking for local control over that. Well, it's up to you, but,
I don't want local control.
pardon me?
I do not want to make that decision.
Okay.
I mean, I'm speaking for myself. So that this one will
We
be,
got marched down and we weren't even making the decision.
I don't want to make that, that's above my pay grade.
Yeah.
This one will be
triple
a
you're
little
gonna get.
controversial. Yeah,
Yeah, something like that.
yeah. Well, I think it's,
Let me just ask you a question. But would it even matter? Because if you will end up, you potentially could be in a situation like we were where our answer is, even though we have this and even though our feeling is that, you know, we would do something different, the governor is mandating that we have to, so it's like, what is the point?
well, they want the point to come to us, they don't want the mandates to be outside of us.
But wouldn't the state trump what we what we're saying here?
It could.
It could, but what they're saying is they want the local control of that. They're trying to pass, they want to take the power away from the state and give it to the local.
We're supporting, I just don't see that, we're supporting potential legislation.
Potential, yes, yes. This is only a resolution on
It's a
what
wish list.
NISBA's advocacy would be.
I don't want to be making that decision, so I say no.
It could be.
Take a poll.
It could be.
Okay, who supports local control of making that decision? I have one. No. Rob, I have two. How many do not want local support of that? Who does not want to make that decision?
I do not want to make that.
1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting. We can't. So what is that? We don't have 5 votes, so what do we do? Nothing.
That's,
We do nothing.
All on remote?
No.
Nope, there's no remote tonight.
Yeah, let's not get started
Oh,
on that either.
So I have 1, 2, 3, okay,
But-
show of hands. How many do not want local control?
I do not want.
You want local control? You do not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay.
so
You
it's
do not
no.
want local control.
It's no.
No.
Okay. I'm off my game now, huh? I'm
Oh,
not
come
gonna
on,
break the
Becky.
record anymore.
Come on, Becky.
Number 36.
Well, with that clock roll, can you get us a clock?
NISBA, resolved that NISBA opposed mandates from the state education department that require school districts to implement curriculum regarding matters not pertaining to standard academic subjects.
This is the same thing.
You know what this is about.
This, and do you know what this is? Yeah.
You know what this is about, right?
If you read the,
Yeah. Coded is a good word.
if you'd like, I can look up the rationale for you, NISBA's rationale.
I have it here.
Okay. Yes, it would be number 36, it's on page 26.
Yeah, I have it here.
NISBA's position and their rationale.
What's that in regards to? This is the rationale.
Yes. Different forms of sex ed. LBGD, you know what I'm talking about.
LGBTQ.
Those type of issues.
Okay, so
Okay, so would you support that resolution, or would you not?
we want local control or not local control? These are
Well,
for-
no, the number 36 is, they're resolving that NISBA oppose mandates from the state education department that require school districts to implement curriculum regarding matters not pertaining to standard academic subjects.
Okay, then I'll read the rationale. Okay. Needs of the school districts across the state and the values of their constituents within each community vary greatly. As the structure of the public education system of the state is designed to have local control by district through the election process of representative school board members, school districts should maintain control over choice and topics of curriculum.
That's the rationale for the resolution.
I say stay away from it. You should stay away from this.
And in many ways, it's similar to the previous one.
Right, but
And-
NISBA's rationale for not supporting this is that one of the central roles of the state education department is to streamline curriculum and learning standards, so
Right.
it's,
Brought up by the Friends for Mass People.
Yeah. So you'll get conservative districts who will say one thing and
Yes.
more liberal districts that'll say something else.
So we want to support NISBA's position?
well, do you support the resolution?
Stay out of it.
The resolution is opposing mandates from the state that require certain curriculum, require districts to implement curriculum regarding matters not pertaining to standard academic subjects. Mr. Massaro, is there another way I should? Okay.
Well, we're not worrying about that.
It's about local control. It's all about local control.
They're opposing local control or supporting them?
They're opposing state education department local control of non-education. So if you do not want those, you vote yes on it.
Okay, let me ask it a different way. Do we want local control over this or not local control? Then you can translate
That's
it.
the answer.
I don't want local control.
Let me ask a question to make sure I understand this. Let's say we're not to make this political, but let's say we're not in the political world that we're in New York State. And potentially, in the future, there might be different views at a federal level, at a state level. And and some of you, and this it pertains to the one prior to this, even, right? And say we're in a situation where right now we feel like we wouldn't want to have control. But what if there was a situation where some of us and our values that we might feel are good now are not in the future, and then we wish we had local control?
Yeah.
It's just something I think that maybe we should think about, because, you know, it goes back to what Ann said. It's, do you want control to make the decisions that are best for the children in our district, or do we want to let somebody else control that? And my only recommendation would be is there's a lot of things changing at all levels of government, and I think it would be good to be nimble, especially if we're asked by the community or supported by the community to support them and their children, that we might want to think about anything that has to do with giving us control might be something we want to think about having a conversation about. Not specific to this, not specific to the one, you know, previous, just my thought.
I do see your point, which is a good point. The only bad thing is that we have local control over everything. And we will never get a meeting done because you're going to have opposite opinions on everything we teach, everything we don't teach. And that's not our, you know, I think we could be here every night. I think that's, again, my statement, it's above our pay grade.
Yep.
I think
But I
that,
don't know if everyone feels that way. I'm just, no? Okay, so we got a couple here. Maria, you had something to say? Microphone.
I was just saying that I would ask that you consider what Mr. Wilson has said, because what he's really saying is that as a body, as a board, if you have the ability to have control to represent your constituents and not have to be, forget about what reason it is, but not have to be subject to what the state says all districts have to do, but you know something is better for our district, which we knew many times during the last COVID period, according to Mr. Laurie, and what we knew about our constituents. But put that aside. Don't give up your local control if you have the ability to not do so. So that's, I think, the point that Mr. Bilson was making. You get to be nimble, you get to be flexible, you get to decide at that point in time, are you going to follow the guidelines? Or if there's something better for your particular constituency, you have the flexibility to not do so if you have the local control.
And I do agree with that position, but that opens the door for people to come here on every decision.
Yes, it does.
That's the way I mean, I may be wrong, but that's the way I'm interpreting it. I agree with what you say, but I can think of 10 things that the state says that, you know, that might be
Curriculum-wise.
controversial.
And we're really focusing here on curriculum, I think,
Yeah.
this resolution.
On non-curriculum items.
Says
On, pardon?
I'm thinking that.
It's non-core, core.
Say again?
Core.
It's non-core, like math, science, social studies.
Right.
This
It's-
is more
it's curriculum,
social things.
yes.
yes.
But
I, My only thing is, looking at these up-and-coming resolutions, I don't necessarily have an opposition to the theory behind what they're saying. It's the underlying tone of all of these next resolutions and the spirit of what they're written in and where they're coming. Not necessarily, well, I don't necessarily know these places, but there is an underlying tone in all of these up-and-coming resolutions from these same places, and that's my issue. Like, the large issue isn't what I have an issue with. It's the unspoken tone about what they're saying in all of these next resolutions that I have a problem with.
The only thing I would like to add, and I wish it was amended to say this, is that there's the ability for a district who feels this way to request a waiver from the state. So it's not so black and white, yes or no.
Yeah, good point.
If the amendment could read that local districts, that the state makes those calls with the option to wait, to listen to their community, and I'm trying to bridge a little bit of what Maria and Rob said, because there might be something very particular to Niagara Falls, it's not particular to Massapequa or Rochester, but it's very passionate to the majority of this board and this community. I wish that would allow us to write a waiver to the state to allow us to do or not to do, instead of making it one fall swoop.
Well, we could probably, amendments going nowhere.
Yeah.
And this, the only thing is we can propose that next year.
Mark, I just have one question. We could choose to follow the state guidelines or not to. That's what give us control. That would give the school district control. Just because we don't agree with the state, we could change it to suit our needs. And if it does fit our needs, we can follow it. There's nothing to say we don't have to follow it in the resolution, right?
Well, I would not want to be on record saying that this is a state regulation, but we're not going to
We're
follow
not
it.
going to follow them.
Well, this is doing the curriculum. We're going to change the curriculum for our students, this one here. That's what I'm
Right,
saying.
on this one, on this one.
The state is mandating, the state education department of that is mandating that the school districts do this pertaining to standard, not pertaining to academic standards. So if you are opposing the state's mandates, okay, you are looking for something optional. Right now, the state is mandating, as I understand that.
That's the way I understand. I understand that if you oppose these mandates from the state, that you support the resolution. If,
If you oppose it, and
You're right, Tony.
the legislation is not goes through, if legislation goes through removing the mandates, then you have your option, is what it does.
so this resolution, though, is opposing mandates from the state. So I guess it's just a matter of, do you support the resolution or not?
You support the resolution opposing the mandates.
No, do you support the resolution? Don't worry about which way NISBA recommended, because we need to be consistent, and we've been replying as in support or not of the resolutions as they're written.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So we really need consistency in our responses, so when we compile everything for you, it's meaningful, there's consistency.
So do you want local control or not?
So let me ask this, they're opposing local control?
The
Or
m-
they're
the
for
re-
local
The
control?
resolution, yes,
For local.
posing mandates.
Yes,
No, not, NISBA's, regardless of, the district that's put forth this resolution is asking NISBA to oppose mandates from state ed requiring districts to implement curriculum regarding certain matters not pertaining to academic subjects.
You support the opposition.
Yes. You support the resolution. If you are opposing mandates, you're in support of the
But
resolution.
NISBA's not supporting this.
Correct.
Correct. If you want to go further and
Well, I know,
think of
I'm
NISBA's
still trying to,
position,
NISBA's position is local control or not local control.
if I can read you NISBA's rationale, I was hoping to stay away from NISBA's
no, what I'm trying to
position on
say-
this, but.
We're on the same path, and I think it's simple. For the final 10, Mark said, NISBA is not supporting the resolution.
Right.
Therefore, in 36 as an example, Oyster Bay and Locust are saying they're asking NISBA to oppose mandates. NISBA's saying, no, we're not going to oppose mandates.
But if you support the resolution, you need to say yes to this.
Yeah, then they start screwing with your funding and everything else. No.
Is that true or not? Is that true?
Yeah, you're right.
Is that true?
Oh, that's his conjecture, I would like to think that the formula is the formula.
We should be voting on the resolutions, yeah.
I'd say it's not true, but he's Josh Allen.
But I will say one quick thing, just as a point of commentary. The way that this is written is confusing if we don't.
It is.
Because when we run through the final 10, it's board supports NISBA's, I know you said you're taking care of it, but board supports NISBA's position. Mark says the final 10, or NISBA says no. So
Right.
yes, we support the no, but then Becky, what you're saying is, are we supporting the resolution? I'm just saying the way that it's written on here.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, yes, because no, we are voting to me on the resolution.
Right.
Are we in
Right.
support of the resolution or not?
she tried a different approach with you.
Correct,
It's a shortcut, though.
correct.
So
do
let's
you
make
s-
it simple.
Yep.
We support local control or we don't, so we go around the table and finish this.
Okay.
We're gonna miss the second quarter.
I'll go first. I support local control.
Local control.
No.
No.
So is that 4? You're a yes?
4 and 3.
Yes.
How many no's? Hands up. Hands up, hands up, come on, hands up, no's. Do you support local control in all these matters? No, I'm asking who? I asked for the no's. No's.
So there are 3 no's, so it is yes, you are in support
No,
of the
no, no,
resolution.
no. Wait a second.
Okay,
How many yeses? 1, 2, 3, 4, so there's a no vote, we abstain. You have to have 5 votes.
But is that true for
Yes.
Is that true for just deciding if the board
Yes.
supports a NISBA resolution?
Yes. Well, we can poll Jimmy, Paul are missing, right? We could poll Jimmy and Paul, and I'm not explaining to them, that's on you.
I mean, if you want,
It
we
might
will
take you a
not,
week.
we will not answer this one now. We will give you a chance to speak to,
No, I'll give you a chance to speak.
oh, you'll give me a chance? Okay.
Better
I will
yet,
speak to
Judy
Jim
can.
and
Judy will give you a chance too.
Judy can.
Paul. We will.
You got do you have the tally, Jude?
I got you.
All
I
right,
do.
right now I have an abstention on that.
So are all the remainder fall into the same category of local control? Because if that's the case, then why bother moving forward with the rest until we get Jimmy and Paul's opinion?
What number
I
are we at?
have to read through them again, I don't
Yeah,
remember.
what number are we
just-
at? What number was it?
Yeah,
Same intent.
Yeah.
What number was that?
that was 36.
And by the way, I'll just a comment for the board. Like, right now, with the way things are going, I think it's easy to, like, Errol brings up a great point about the tone of the remainder, right? But there might be a time when the tone is completely different and against our values and the good nature of our students. That's why I think it's important to have control, because you never know, right?
Yeah.
All you do is try to put 9 people in a position that have the values of the community at heart.
And that's why I think a waiver process is much better than trying to get the state to have everybody go one way or another. But let's move on to 37.
Number 37. Resolve that NISBA advocate for the adoption of parental rights legislation. Such legislation will protect parents' fundamental right to direct the upbringing of their children, which includes but is not limited to matters of education, medical care, moral, religious, and character
There we go.
training.
Same thing.
It's the same thing. It's about
Well, this is about
curriculum and
this is about
health and-
vaccinations.
It is. Yeah.
That's what this is about. Oh, is it?
So,
Okay.
do you agree with the resolution that you want NISBA to advocate for the adoption of parental rights legislation?
That's a way to go about it.
So do you not want to support this resolution?
Correct. That's my
So
position.
this is a no on
I
this
do
resolution?
not want to support this.
You do
And
not
you're right,
support the
Earl. I would
resolution?
always let opt-outs occur,
Pardon me?
unless it was a mandated
You
thing.
want to support it?
38.
No, wait.
Oh,
I
I'm
don't have a
sorry.
consensus, Mark. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Well,
I'm sorry, in this specific example, would this be an example? If the mandate was every child in the district had to be immunized, our response would be, well, that's what the mandate is, so sorry. And what they're saying is allow for opportunities for parents, in this particular case, reinstate religious or moral objection to immunization. So we're giving the parents a choice. If we vote yes, we're giving parents a choice. If we vote no, we're saying that if a mandate came down to require everyone to be vaccinated, that we have to just go with what the mandate says. If that's the way it reads. Yes?
I think you're correct. I think you're correct. I think this one, I think that's 38, Rob. I think this one says, if we are going to do the 16-19 project, we're not doing the 16-19 project. Okay? We're not doing it. I'm just using this as an illustrative statement to Mr. Bilson's question. We're not doing it. But an illustration, if we're to do that, the parents should have the right to opt their kids out.
Yes.
And I apologize, was I talking about 38 and we already did that and we're on 39? Is that?
We're on 37.
I'm one ahead, I'm sorry.
I was trying to use a different example.
Yeah, we're on 37.
That's how I read this.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Yeah, the parents' rights include their ability to say, no, we're not doing that.
Right, so do we
Providing
support
access
this
to
resolution
instructional
or
materials.
not?
What's that putting on teachers?
you have 7,000 different rights, you'll be going crazy. You can't do it.
Okay,
No.
so that's no, we don't support that resolution.
Right.
So number 38
We're good with that, everybody?
is resolved that the NISBA, that the New York State School Board Association advocate for the reinstatement of the religious or moral objection to immunization.
NISBA does not support this, right?
And that could also be the polio immunization, for example?
That's just
I don't
immunization.
support this.
Yes.
It's all because of the code.
Colleagues?
No.
No, I
So
see
you don't
no's.
support the resolution,
We're
which,
good with no. I hear a lot of no's. You're indifferent, so I don't have a vote there. No's. How many no's? 1, 2, 3,
So it's
4.
asking for reinstatement, so a rule's already been made on this, so I'm voting no.
Good, 5, we're done.
okay. Okay, number 39.
Pardon me? I did.
Number 39, resolve that the New York State School Board Association oppose legislation that would eliminate the single occupancy zoning for localities. And I will look up the rationale if you would
What
like.
is it?
What in the world does that mean? I'm a little lost.
I forget, remember I looked it up before and I did forget, so, okay. That in the last budget proposal, there was a provision to eliminate single-family occupancy zoning laws. With increased units being constructed on existing properties, our schools will be overrun with additional students and no additional taxes paid to cover the cost of educating more children. So they're saying where there is, that there was a provision to eliminate single-family occupancy zoning laws. So there's a empty property down the street, let's say, that if they eliminate those zoning laws for claiming that single occupancy, they can build an apartment there, right? You might have 5 families there then with, and 30 students coming to the district, but we're receiving taxes then only on a single.
That's right.
Yes, thank you. No, no. That's for they live on top of each other.
Okay, so we do not support this resolution.
Good job, Judy. You made it, Judy.
Almost.
I know. Okay, number 40, resolve that the New York State School Boards Association shall oppose any legislation or commission or regulation that would require any school district or board of education to adopt a comprehensive sexuality education for students K through 12.
That was coming.
Okay, this is asking, this resolution is saying that NYSBA should oppose any legislation. So it's up to you if you support the resolution or you don't. The comprehensive is, yes.
I say
Well,
no.
comprehensive K, I don't, it depends what they're teaching.
And it's a sexuality, not sexual.
Yeah.
So if you would like NYSBA to oppose any legislation, you're in agreement with the resolution. If you,
Agree, agree with the resolution.
Yep.
Agree to oppose.
Right. Yep.
so we're in agreement with the resolution, you would vote yes on that one.
41.
Okay, 41. Support legislation at the state level that would set limits on the start time for schools to be no earlier than 8 a.m.
Come on.
You
Oh, the heck.
can't mess with this without
Agree
busting
to
out.
oppose the resolution.
So
Right.
you're voting, you do not support the resolution, so you're voting no.
Thank you. Yes.
We got our little
Okay, we're in the home stretch.
2 more, Beck.
42, okay. That the school boards hereby petition New York State Education Department and the commissioner thereof to modify or advocate for changes to any applicable law, rule, or regulations and allow local school districts the autonomy to develop suitable substitute tests in place of Regents examinations for those specific children who would otherwise be caused to suffer unnecessary stress, trauma, and anguish at having to take the Regents examinations, allowing the school district to confer a local high school diploma to any such child meeting all other requirements for graduation.
So you're taking the standards and you're throwing them out the window.
Well, the Regents exams should be overhauled.
Yes.
They should be overhauled. They're nowhere near where they need to be. They're not a good mark for any student, especially ours. Just my, I mean,
But I also don't think every district should come up with their own exam, because I could just see some districts that want to be the #1 district.
Yeah.
That it'll be basket weaving.
well, yeah. Dry cleaning 101 or
There
something
you
like
go,
that.
Mark, you said it.
So,
That'll be a tough one.
so I guess if you support the resolution, then you are asking NYSBA to advocate to modify or advocate for changes to applicable laws about the regents exams.
But I think what they're saying here is they want to give it to local people.
Right.
I'm not in favor of that.
So you don't support the resolution?
I support, this is twofold. We're getting into, I agree with Mark, it needs to be overhauled, but I don't think there should be 725 different standards. So I agree to disagree as NSBA does.
So you're voting a no for the resolution? You would vote no on the resolution?
It's a no.
Correct, correct.
Okay, so that's no. Last one, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, that the state education, NSBA should oppose mandates from the state education department that require school districts to implement curriculum regarding matters not pertaining to what has traditionally and historically been considered subjects appropriate for public education, or without penalty or forfeiting of any type whatsoever, including monetary. Local districts can at their sole discretion opt out of any non-historically or traditionally based educational curriculum required by the Department of Education.
Boy, that school district's busy too.
I wish I had this much time to write all this stuff. Yeah.
They forgot a whereas,
I
Mr. Massaro.
agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree. I
So
support
you
NSBA.
do not support
I
the
support
resolution?
NSBA's disagreement.
Yes, you do not support the
We
resolution?
do not support this.
So it's a no.
Yep.
And that is all I have for you this evening.
Well, let me just.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just tell you, Becky, you did a better job than I have a list of people you did a better job and a list of people you didn't. You did a better job than Bill Liardini, Bill Hamilton, Jim Ingrassi, Roy Rogers, and Joe Girizzo. Not as good as Dick Hitchkiss, so it's okay.
Wow.
I try to be honest with everybody.
Mark, you fired off a bunch of things. You didn't even like take a breath.
No, I was rating Becky's work. I have to write her evaluation, Becky. Great job, Beck. Thank you. Can we morph quickly into the next meeting is a voting meeting. It's on the 22nd of September. Your resolution packet is before you. I'd like to take time to go through all of these and tell you that at 5:30 on that day, I'm going to ask Ray and team to hook up a Zoom call with the Maisto case lawyer, Mr. Biggerstaff, Ms. Biggerstaff, and the president of the Small Cities Organization, Bill Lynch. So what we're going to do first is put that group on a Zoom call, Ray, and I'll work with Ray to do that. And they're going to explain to you the ongoing, what's the rationale for the ongoing legal costs that we're being asked to incur, and to give you a status update on the Maisto case. That's the small city school case that we've won and are now in the remedy phase. After that, we'll review the agenda, and if we have another agenda item to add, we will. When the meeting starts at 7 o'clock, the following will be presented to you. We have what I'm anticipating will be 4 or 5 graduates from August. You've been through this ceremony before. I have to check with Ms. Villardo. I think there are 4, could be 5, students that earned their diploma during the summer months. In addition to that, we have 5 students who achieved a perfect score last year on the ELA or the EMA. One of them has left the district, so we've invited all 5, but we're hoping that you'll have 4 perfect score students to present awards to at that meeting. Following that, you'll have your oral and written communications, the minutes. There is one budget transfer. It's number 2 and number 13. Becky, are there 2 budget transfers there?
That's what was provided. Yes, there is the one from June 30th to prepare for the audit.
Okay.
We do that resolution allowing us to.
Yes. So that's why there are 2 budget transfers there. We have one bid. I can't tell you right now who will this bid will be. This bid hit the papers on September 1st. It's a plumbing bid. We would like this bid to use we have money remaining in phase 2 of the last capital project. Earl and the purchasing department have purchased bottle fillers for the schools. You know how we're getting away from drinking fountains? Through capital projects money, we're going to conclude that money by putting up to 25 bottle fillers in the schools. The bid is still out. The bid won't come back until September 20th. That's 2 days before your vote. When the bid is opened at 2:30, I will email you who the apparent low plumbing bidder is. We believe we have had 4 local plumbing outfitters pick up bid specs. And I don't think I need to get into the 4, but these 4 plumbers, you're familiar with them all. So they'll have a chance to win a bid to install bottle fillers in our schools. If there's no questions, we'll move on. There's a treasurer's report, budget status report. Maria will come to you with the personnel reports in just a moment. Preschool and special ed. 5 short-term contracts. Last year we started we're calling it self-defense training. It's really discipline training. It's boxing, and we're going to do this at the 2 prep schools and at the high school, and eventually take kids to the boxing gym on Hyde Park Boulevard. It's no different than when we do Master Ketchen's karate with kids in the summer.
Mark, I have a question.
Yes.
Is that, I just wanted to make sure that wasn't a typo. That's 29,000, not 2,900?
It's 29,000, yeah, it's for 100 students. The second one is a girls empowerment program for Gaskill Prep School. 15 to 20 girls the first semester, another 15 or 20 girls the second semester. Pastor Brooks is the new pastor of St. John's, but she's doing this through her social work degree in her program. She's been very involved with the girls at Gaskill and is going to do 2 separate programs, 15 girls to 20 girls each, one semester and then a second semester. That's for the whole year. The convention center rather, that there is no compensation. We'll wipe that number off there. That is just to tell you that the prom this year is at the conference center, and we do a contract with the conference center to allow the kids to have the prom there. We don't need to do it for graduation because we're doing graduation on the field. Yes, sir.
Question?
Sorry, Mr. Lurie. Just want to go back to the first one, if
Yeah.
you don't mind. What is the total? Whenever I see a big number, I just want to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
If it's a big number, how many hours total from October to May? I want to see what we're paying per hour.
Yeah.
I'm just curious per because I mean, if it's 100 kids and it ends up being like $5 an hour, that's a great deal.
Yeah.
Right?
It's going to be 2 hours a day, 2 days a week. I got to do the math. 2 or 3 days a week. 6. Huh?
Right, but
Yeah,
how many?
for the whole
he's
year.
looking for how many hours is each child going? That's the
Oh,
question.
what's the cost per child, Rob?
Oh, how many hours is the child?
Have we done it before?
Yeah, we did it last year. but
successful?
Yeah, but not
Same
this-
company?
Yeah, but
Great.
not this big. This is bigger.
Good.
300
This is-
hours per child.
Yeah.
Child goes, how many hours is the total hours participating in class? No, start again. Hours per child. How many, 2 or 3 times a week, we can know how many times a week?
About 120 hours, and I'm estimating 30 weeks.
Okay.
Right.
120
It's not going to
hours-
start till October.
120 hours per child? For $300? That's a steal of that.
It is, and I looked over the facility, I'm actually a pro for this. I think it's a good program.
We did it, Rob, last year, not this big. We just did it with Gaskill kids. It's more about teaching them discipline than it is about anything
So
else.
successful program last year.
Yeah.
We expanded it. That's why the number increased. That caught my eye, but we had success with this, and it was good for the kids.
Yep.
Good.
You got the convention center. The restorative practices are through the Teacher Center. Remember, it's an F-code grant, Teacher Center grant. And Niagara University Reach, that is for a early college, 2 classes, 6 credit hours to pay for the classes at Niagara University. Reach is a social work course. Moving forward, there's no unfinished business. Here we go, and I'll ask the team to jump in with me. Alder Creek has closed. Did you know that, Rob? Mr. Bilson, did you know that? Alder Creek has $7,000 worth of music instruments they're going to give us, so we're going to accept them.
Beautiful.
Heard Matt's Music had a monopoly and took all the little mom and pop shops out. But I heard the Grisantis were starting back up again, so then we're in good shape.
Wow.
They're giving it,
Is that the place over on?
from where?
My guitar player learned how to play Enter Sandman by Metallica from Perry Novak and Grisantis. And that's you know,
Can you,
we need more of those.
I think you and Mr. Bass should start working on
I
that.
tried to get them to do that for the kids at the football team. We're gonna run out to Enter Sandman, like Mariano Rivera used to do. And the kids went, who's Metallica?
But that is sad news. That is sad news that Alder Creek closed, but good news for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyways, we're getting $7,000 worth of instruments. That's what the
Love
gift
it.
is.
Fantastic.
I happen to like them, Earl.
I just think about Mariano Rivera.
Yeah.
That's all,
Moving on, we're going to have the meeting of the, in October, your meeting is moved from the 27th to the 20th. Remember, the NSBA conference is on the 27th through the 29th. So this is officially moving the meeting, the voting meeting, up a week. So there'll be back-to-back board meeting weeks. 603, Mr. Petrosi, put this on there because I want to make sure we start to conclude the conversation about remote meetings and make sure that A, we have the public hearing, and B, we have the resolution set the way you and the board would like it. So I'll stop there.
Okay, Angela will have a resolution prepared for next week. Doesn't mean we have to vote on it. The resolution will state the law as the law is written. If I'm correct, the question was over remote meetings at work. And Angelo, that is not going to, that resolution will not include regularly scheduled work. Am I correct, Angelo?
Regularly scheduled work is not included in the legislation. It indicates that it may be extraordinary or significant factors, unexpected factors. Now, if the board wishes to extend that, to extend the resolution, they can direct me to do so. However, I caution the board that it appears from the intent of the legislation that it has to be extraordinary circumstances. It has to be significant factors that is stated and unexpected factors. Then, based on that criteria, if you give me something you wish to be included, I will try to word it so as to qualify under that criteria. And then it's a board decision. But remember, even if the board wishes to vote an item that is not in the intent of the resolution, it can be challenged. And it can be challenged on some very significant matters, such as I indicated last time, which could be budget, appointments, and other things. So again, the scheduled work is not included in the legislation. If the board wishes it to be included, I'll see what we can do with some wording, but I'm very cautious on it.
Okay, way I interpret is my colleagues, there was significant support to include that as we talked. So we're gonna put the resolution as written as the law is written. If somebody chooses to amend it, then we'll vote on the amendment. or we can just talk about this, but we need some direction. If there's support to do allowing work, then we can ask Angelo to research it. I personally don't want him to research it if there's not support. And I don't know because it's flips and flops. So we only have 7 here today. I think prepare the resolution. We can table it. We can talk about it. We can not vote on it. We could do whatever we want with it. But that's the way I see it as today, because the couple of votes changed. I polled, and there is significant to support work as the last time I saw it. So I'm going to ask Angela to, if anyone wants to comment, feel free. Go ahead.
Only thing I would say, I would appreciate if we considered that for multiple reasons. Not even necessarily because it affects me directly, but in my particular case, and in potentially in Paul's case, if work conflicts with a meeting, I have 2 options. I can try to do an exchange, which has been difficult lately, or I can use my paid time off to be here. Now, if I use my paid time off to be here, that's creating 14 hours of potentially overtime for the city to attend a meeting for a board position that's voluntary. And trying to be financially responsible as an employee and also committing, fulfilling my duties, those 2 things conflict.
That's why I think it's warrants further discussion, and it may not be a vote on it next week.
Yeah.
It may be a discussion on it. We can choose to talk about it at the beginning of the meeting. I don't even want to poll because I got 2 missing, and I think one it definitely could affect. So I think, I'd like to hear his opinion. So I think we'll prepare the resolution as written, as the law is written, and then we can choose to do what we want with it.
Earl, I have a question for you, if you don't mind. It's irrelevant to how we vote on it, but you said something I'm just interested in. If you took a pay, because I don't understand how your pay structure works. If you take a paid day off, take a vacation day, how does that create overtime?
We have minimum manning. So right now, we're at a threshold where our minimum manning is being met to a degree that's if everyone who's on staff is there. For the last 1.5 years, my particular platoon, we've had overtime every day for 18 months.
I get it. So thank you for clarifying. So what ends up happening is if you take a day off, someone's going to cover you.
Yes.
Because and it could be potentially someone that's taking overtime to cover your spot.
Yes.
Totally understand. Thank you.
Can I ask a question, Mr. Petrosi?
Sure you may.
I'm just confused on one aspect of this. At what point does the public hearing come into play?
If we choose to approve
The
virtual
resolution?
hearing.
So if you go forward with this resolution, then you have a public hearing, and the purpose is to hear the public say, you made a mistake? Rescind it?
No, I think the way the resolution will read is to follow the procedure to accommodate virtual meetings.
Okay.
You have to have a resolution to go, what we're actually doing is taking the temperature of the board if they choose to go forward. There's no sense in having a public hearing if there's no support.
The resolution would be twofold in your practice. Resolution would be such as to incorporate all of the factors that are in the act itself, including the notice, including the types of things that are excusable, including the following up, placing it on our website, keeping it there for 5 years. All of that should be included in the resolution. The resolution then will be presented to a public hearing, and after the public hearing, you will vote on the matters that are contained in the resolution.
Okay. So I'm just trying to, 'cause the reason I'm asking the question so I can work with you and Judy to plan the agenda. If you were to, just hypothetically, if you were to act on it and approve it, then we'd schedule a public hearing whenever you tell me, October,
Yeah,
November.
it's probably gotta be 30 days out, the usual, I would guess. So we'd schedule a public hearing, and then after the public hearing, we would approve or disapprove.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Similar to, Mr. Superintendent, similar to the policies that we follow.
Okay,
You would put a policy before us, and you would table it for 30 days.
okay,
Put the resolution before yourself.
okay,
You'd probably table it, but you wouldn't be acting on it until you finalize it to the public hearing.
okay. And I appreciate that, and I think I understand that, and I know Judy does. I just want to make sure that the listening public understands that you're just getting the body and the content of the resolution ready. Then there'll be notice for the public to speak on it. They may come in mass, they may not say anything, and you'll listen to their comments, and then subsequently, you will approve or disapprove based on what you hear. Okay.
The resolution will not be acted upon the first night.
That's helpful.
Resolution for a public hearing at which the resolution will be approved.
Okay, thank you. I'm just sensitive to the viewing public having a chance to comment, if they choose, and not say it's a fait accompli because you passed a resolution. That's all. Thank you, that's helpful.
What Mr. Chosy is saying, that the presentation to the board, that you use it strictly within the law itself, and then that evening, you can have a discussion, and you want to put in, talk about the work situation.
Mhm.
In the meantime, what I will do is, since there is an interest, and since there's some good points that were made here, to see if it can be structured somehow to accommodate that type of work schedule. I think one of the clearest things that tries to accommodate is a regular schedule that an individual has. An individual has a regular, continuous schedule for 52 weeks from 4 to 12, let's say. That isn't what happens in the fire department or in the police department. It's not a regular schedule that way. So I'm trying to get an understanding. It's interesting what you just said this evening about additional costs to the owner. The other question comes to my mind is there any way that scheduling can be done around the board meeting so that you don't lose your time and it doesn't cost the city? When I was at the city, I remember it used to have holidays, something called holidays, and they were able to schedule the schedule so that you didn't miss certain things. So if it's all right with the board, between now and the time of the resolution, I'm not put it in the resolution. I intend to talk to Earl and maybe others to see if there is some way of accommodation or scheduled work that's not scheduled.
As they say, it's complicated.
It is.
Yep.
And there's no guideline on it since it's fresh. And Mr. Superintendent, that's why I said it's comparable to a policy.
Yeah,
There's a policy,
Yeah.
a proposed policy.
yep.
They recommend that we hold a public hearing 30 days, whatever it is, we'll work out.
It's a good analogy. This Kelly rule,
No, I don't think there is this Kelly.
who, I've never heard that term. Earl, have you heard the term Kelly days? Really?
That was before your term, Mr. Superintendent.
Okay. Yeah. You're significantly younger than me, and you've heard the term.
He's well-rounded.
I'm just trying to make a point of, yes, I'm just trying to make a point that with,
Mark,
Yeah.
Mark, the last time they had Kelly days, there were horses in the hall, and
Yeah, that's
Angelo
what
was
I
the
thought.
attorney.
Square wheels.
And Angelo was the attorney. Yeah.
was that Gene Kelly?
He's heard of that, but he said nobody knows Metallica. He really says.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now, you see, the Kelly Day would have worked in
was Jim or Gene Kelly. I don't know which one it was. Okay. Grace.
It shows you that the fire departments in cities were Irish-oriented back a long time.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
As we move forward, if I may, Mr. Petrosi, are you satisfied with that?
I am, if everyone else is.
Oh, absolutely.
No.
I don't know if this will be settled next week, but at least we will proceed until we, one way or another, get it taken care of.
And the analogy of the policy is helpful for, at least for myself in scheduling, to present to the president and the board with Judy. That's helpful. May I go? 604, we have a number of grants that now need to get the work done. The first one, you can see it's paid for by our 21st Century and Empire. This is for Niagara University for consultant services. This is for literacy classes. And it's paid for out of an F code. 605 is something that the K and K through 2 teachers have asked for continuously over the last 6 years. The Western New York Mental Health Associates come in and they do Too Good for Violence with our kindergartners, first graders, and second graders. And we pay a facilitator to come into all 7 of our primary schools, and the teachers love this. And it's a good way to get another SEL program in front of our kids. This is 606 is a professional mental health counselor that we use as part of the mental health grant. That's paid for again out of a grant. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Mark.
That's okay.
I'm getting hyped up for the Bills game. I'm asking a lot of questions. For this one in particular, 606, can you refresh my memory? Very important role, very helpful to the district. How are we going about selecting the right person for the role again?
This contract?
For this one as an example.
She's been with us for a number of years.
Very successful, it's worked
Yes.
out well, okay.
Been with us for a number of years, and just in full disclosure, also very difficult to find a women minority-owned business. She's good and also helps us fulfill that requirement. I'm just being totally transparent.
Oh, yes, because I remember, I feel like this popped up like 3 sessions ago or something.
It
I thought
did.
this was already, it's where my confusion is.
No.
That we're seeing, I thought we had already approved this.
Well, you did. Very good memory, but you did it for the summer.
That's why I'm, okay. I got you.
You did. Now, this is for the entire school year.
Okay.
But you're correct. 607 is a free service. It's a mobile mental health counseling for the high school. We don't pay anything for this. It's billed back through insurance. It's probably called Medicaid or Medicaid, I think it's paid for. But we just want to put this on the record. 608 is another grant-funded program. The Community Missions comes in and does work in our schools with selected groups of students under the direction of the support teams or the pupil service teams. 609 is for, am I on 609? This is extremely successful Modi Cox program. Modi has been in our district many, many years. The schools asked for him. Again, paid for out of a grant. 610 is for our F-Bites program. You've had presentations before from Chef Bobby. This regards the teaching of culinary and the coffee shop at high school, the 2 prep schools. 611 allows all of our students to go to Latchkey for free. That's through the Boys and Girls Club. So, you know, we have a Latchkey in 8 of our elementary schools, and this is paid for by a grant so that the Latchkey parents, who we have many of, either before school where there are programs or after school, get to go for free. 612 came about as a part of the pandemic. This is in particular for our Hispanic students. This is for a gentleman named Jose Garcia. Jose Garcia serves as an outreach person to our Hispanic population. I say that because during COVID, our Hispanic kids had the highest level of remote learning, and we were having some very difficult struggles getting them to do remote learning and getting involved in remote. So he has been a godsend to Niagara Falls High School, LaSalle Prep, G.J. Mann, and Calfus, where our ENL students are. He mainly focuses on the 176 Hispanic students that we have in our district. 613. This is for nurses when and only when we can't get a nurse in district. We have many situations where we have children who need nurses to accompany them on field trips. At the football game, there's a football player that needs a nurse with him full time. Sometimes it's hard to take our nurses out of their job because we could use more nurses, and assign them to a field trip, a football game, Niagara University show, somewhere off-site. We don't want to take our nurses because we don't have enough to cover the buildings. So we're asking to contract with this company when those situations have exhausted all of our internal nurses, that they provide one for those special arrangements. 614 is to help us with transportation. We've had this before. Arrow does have small vans. They can transport different groups of kids places. Another use of Arrow will be with our PS2 high school program when they're taking 6 kids to a program and you don't want to get a full bus because we can't get a full bus. So they'll provide the transportation. Easter Seals will provide services to one of our special ed children. 616 is we have 2 courses in esports. This is paid for by a grant. We did this again, Mr. Bilson, in the summer, and now we're doing it during the year. This is really called coding. This is really about coding. We call it esports, and they can get 2 college credits. We pay Niagara for the kids to get the college credits through the grant. I'm going to ask Rick to just describe, these are 617, 618, and 619. Rick, this is support for our schools through our SIG-A money for school improvement. Is that correct?
It is. So there are 3 different contracts but they have similar content. A little feedback here. They supply several different things. There is a leadership professional development program for our 4 new assistant principals. There are the costs for all of the stakeholder surveys that we're mandated to do every year as part of the school improvement process. Those are family surveys, staff surveys, and student surveys. There's also professional development on different instructional strategies within the contract. And I think those are the 3 main pieces. The reason that there are 3 is because the way that the grant is constructed, I need to show where the support is being funneled and to which schools.
Thanks, Rick. That's all grant paid for. Yes. 621 is we're purchasing, 620. You know that we're purchasing 9 more lanes of weapons detection. We're buying this off state contract. Nonetheless, I want to have just for belt and suspenders, I just want to have the board approve it. I believe state contract, we're okay purchasing it that way. But I want this resolution so that we could ever prove to an auditor that you are aware that we're adding the 9 lanes.
This is the same brand that we have now?
Yes, Mr. Velardo.
So everything will be the same?
We went with the standardized brand. They've been very good at the prep and high school. So we're sticking with Evolve. We have no complaints about those. The reason it's 9 is because Abbott needs 2. And I appreciate you supporting that. I'm hoping and knowing you will for safety. 621 ties back to the bid. Whatever successful plumber you award the bid to, here we're asking you to award the contract, correct, Earl? Okay, so we don't know who that is yet. 622, this is a seeker for all of the upcoming work we're going to do. And let me just give you the flavor for what this declares negatively. We're going to be putting in a new chiller plant at high school. We are going to be putting in secured vestibules. We are going to be doing some outside field work. You had asked at our retreat to do a monument park type of setup that I'm going to bring drawings to you very soon. This is the seeker concluding that it's a negative declaration and no change to the footprint or the environment. Yeah, no impact to the surrounding. So we want to get the seeker in place so that we have that on the record. 622, I'm going to need to change this. 622, I just want to change this and just make a note. Earl's understudy, Richard, over there, happens to take me literally. We were trying to think of the name of what to call the next capital project. And I said, well, we're doing chillers, we're doing air handlers, we're doing all that. It'll be a breath of fresh air. So Richard wrote the resolution, just as I said it, and is calling the project a breath of fresh air. So I get the resolution, and I think I yell at Becky and Earl, who the heck thought up this title, A Breath of Fresh Air? And of course they said, you did. I said, I did? And they said, don't you remember at the meeting when you called it I said, we need something with a catchy nickname, like a BOFA, a breath of fresh air. So this gentleman, Earl's understudy, decided to title the project A Breath of Fresh Air. We may have to change that. I don't know what state ed's going to think about that.
Yeah, that might be a little,
But Richard wrote the resolution. He does a good job with his resolutions and with the finances. But we need to work with him on his choice of what to call projects. Okay? Otherwise, your work has been excellent. You're welcome. Beautiful. I said, sometimes I just say things, you know, I don't know if you noticed that. And he happens to take it literally. I guess I got to learn that. 623, I'm sorry, is the last resolution. It's a payment for the end of the security camera work that is now in, that Ray directed. This is for UNS. This is a payment of $8,455 for all of those security cameras we've installed. They were paid for out of the Smart Schools Bond Act. They are done, but we are holding $50,000 of their money in retainage. So you will see another resolution in a month or two when Ray tells me he's satisfied with the camera work, because we are holding retainage on that company. If you keep scrolling, we're going to ask you to take this policy off the table, right, Rick? The parent engagement policy. We need to approve this. We're under a Title I audit. I think I've told you that before, and Rick had to work on the parent engagement policy so that we can put that in with our Title I application. That's where we are. Judy's put down the 2 meetings. Now on the 13th, it's going to be, I think we'll dedicate the 13th all to capital projects, because we got to show you all this chiller work. I want you to see all of the secured vestibules. I want you to see all the wiring we're doing. We have and I want to give you a final number on what it's going to cost, or estimated cost. So we need a meeting dedicated to all that work. Much of it is chillers and security. I think it will give us a breath of fresh air in the district. And then we have a meeting on the 20th. Maria has a lot of personnel, if you don't have any other questions. But I want to say this to you right now. This was one of my closing comments. I've been to thoroughly walk 10 of the 11 schools, and I haven't walked Head Start. Tomorrow I'm walking high school all day. I have to tell you, with the exception of one position, one, the schools are completely staffed this opening week. One position. It's a school psychologist. We're dabbling with possibly some retirees and other personnel to fill that position. But what she accomplished And you walk through the schools and you could just feel it. There are kids everywhere and there are people everywhere. The principals are not asking for staff. They're not wondering where they are. She filled but that one school psychologist position, every single position. And the associates are everywhere, and that looks good. Now, the other caveat, and we're going to have to revisit this soon, is we do not have a plethora of substitute teachers. I just want to be honest about it. While we're really pleased and proud of her work, really pleased and proud of her work, she did an incredible job, absolutely incredible job. I'm not going to lie to you and say we've got 8 building-based subs everywhere. That's not the case. So we have a couple of ideas how to recruit more, but Maria really met the challenge, and you know how much of a challenge it was, especially if you look at other districts. And we got down to 1 psychologist when we opened school on Tuesday. So, Maria, take it away. As a matter of fact, I was in a school today, and somebody told me, "How are you doing?" I said, "I'm doing good." They said, "Well, of course, you got Maria doing all your work." I said, "Yeah, that's true." So, oh yeah, they said it. No, and it wasn't really.
Usually it would be my mother.
Unless this woman is related to Maria, I don't think they are even relatives, and she told me that.
It would be my mother. But I do want to mention Alicia Savino, Michelle Brocious, Diana Restaino, Lynn Emick, Mary Beth Spacone, and Janine Davidson, because, and Tina Panapinto, because it is the team in the HRO office that got the staffing completed for the summer. So I'm just there to kind of guide that team, and they assisted me with all of the real difficult work in getting people ready to work. One thing that I do want to say is the reports that you're going to see tonight, they might look light to you. The reason for that is because we didn't want to put folks in front of you who had not fully completed their pre-employment requirements. So we're in the process of making sure that the other associates and the other food service folks that we have in our pipeline have fully completed, and now we're just starting to see them come in and filter in. So you will have a much bigger report 2 weeks from tonight than you have right now.
What part of pre-employment was the holdup, Maria?
The worst part of the pre-employment this year was the fingerprinting process. And there was a couple of reasons for that. The first reason was because some of our vouchers weren't working appropriately, but we got through that issue. We've ordered new vouchers. We have a very great system that we work on with Becky. She orders the vouchers for us, and then the state sends them to us, and then we're able to give them to our applicants so they can go get their fingerprints. But what happened...
Because we pay for the fingerprinting.
We do.
You pay for the fingerprinting as an enticement to get employees here, and is not a burden, especially in the associate food service level jobs. $103?
Yes.
You pay for those vouchers. So we had a little holdup in vouchers. I just wanted them to know that they paid for those.
Correct.
And we do that for our employees. So I think that was a great move. Go ahead.
Right. And the other part of the problem is that there is only one site that we have that we can get applicants fingerprinted. And that site became quite overwhelmed at the end of August, beginning of September, due to some changes in the pistol permit application process. So because there were going to be some changes in that process, the site was flooded with people trying to get their fingerprints completed. And because we only have one site, they started to book fingerprinting appointments out to mid-September. So some of our new folks who have everything else completed can't get their fingerprinting done until the 13th, 14th, 15th of September.
I agree, and let me just say something else that I'm going to advocate for. We used to be able to do fingerprints in Maria's office. Yeah. She was responsible.
We used to be able to do them on site here in
That's what I'm advocating for you, and so I'm advocating for her to be a fingerprinting site in Human Resources office. I don't know how successful we'll be, but you know, you hire 1,300 people, and we hired a lot of people. But in this fingerprint thing, and I won't get into a political conversation about the pistol permit at the same time when the schools are trying to fingerprint people, didn't make much sense to me. But I would rather have Maria have control over the fingerprinting. Not that she can.
We can't change the fingerprints.
Can't change them,
but when
but
we
let her
could
do
take
it.
them, we were able to send them up to the state, and
What?
they were able to.
I'm a local control guy.
Didn't we just prove our point, right, Mr. Bilson?
I'm a local control guy. It was a great when you did it.
It was great. We did. We had 2 days a week. We remember our BOCES representative helped us with it. It was really a great time. But it's okay that it's centralized. It really is, except when it's not. So this time it wasn't. Right. So I'm going to distribute the personnel reports to you. Again, please don't be surprised by their brevity at this point because they are a work in progress.
Mark, who makes the call on giving us permission to do the fingerprints in-house?
How did we lose it, Maria? How did we lose?
State centralized it and only sent it to certain sites.
So the answer to Mr. Bilson's question was, and Maria knew the answer, not I, the state took it back as their project and appointed only certain sites as allowable fingerprint options. It's counterproductive for a school district. It's the casino, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it would have overwhelmed the police station. I think that's what the problem was. They wanted to keep.
We're
public
willing to have it here.
Yeah.
We'll host it here.
Love to have it here. So the classified staff is where you're going to see the biggest jump because, as Mr. Laurie indicated to you before, we spent the bulk of our time early on, starting last April, staffing certificated employees, so that when we got to the first day, we had all our certificated staff in place, and now what we backfilled with was getting our classified staff in place. So starting with the classified report, you see we have some resignations. We have a rescission of a couple of appointments, and then a probationary appointment, a promotional appointment, 3 provisional appointments for secretaries, involuntary transfers, voluntary transfers, and then what you're going to see added to your next report are 2 things. We are going to add the addition of the probationary appointments. All of the folks that we've hired over the summer, our building-based associates and our new associates. And we also annually, as you may remember, we have to reappoint all of our associates annually. So we're going to have all the annual reappointments on this month as well. That's our goal. Moving on to the certificated report, we received a resignation. We have a probationary appointment there. That's just we fixed a salary for you. Then we had to appoint some regular substitutes and rescind a couple of appointments. And then we have some voluntary transfers. And the place where we're light, where you're going to see all of the addition, is that we have schedule work that we have to add to the report. I'm working with Mr. Corella and his staff on adding all of the schedule work to the report so that you get that by your next meeting as well. And some of that schedule work will be work that happened over the summer and work that is going to be happening during this current school year. So any questions? Yes, Mr. Bosa.
First time I'd seen this one, so just a quick question. For page 2, last person,
left.
why do we, is it because it's 2 different roles that we split the pay?
Never told me.
Right, so the union president has a half day every day, and the second half of his day is for union business. That's written right into the contract.
I'm saying, like, if somebody's doing 2 different roles, we can't just pay them at one salary. It has to be split between.
Correct.
That's what I'm asking, because I see 2
Right.
different, there's a TAM and then a 30M.
Yeah, so in the afternoon, that person is just a half-time teacher
Gotcha.
in the afternoon to cover Mr. Weiss.
Do they get 2 paychecks?
No, 1 paycheck. We're just showing this to you for purposes so you know what you're voting on as far as their pay is concerned.
And they get NFT benefits. 'cause
NFT pay and
They
benefits.
get
yeah.
NFT payment benefits. Just,
Any other questions?
it is abbreviated, and Maria will add an asterisk this. But I'm just looking at the classified report, 19 appointments, 14 of them are minorities. And I say that proudly. I say that proudly. If you look at the classified report, and I'm taking the resignations off of there, there are 19 appointments, 14 minorities there hired. The job that she did in making sure that we're upping and increasing, because our kids need it, minority appointments was also something to note, so I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have just a couple of concluding updates for you, and then I'm happy to answer any questions. And then we should be home close to the start of the Yankees' second inning. I just want to tell you that, and I told you I visited 10 of the 11 schools, and I mean, I walked every corner of the building and tried to see every staff member. The school opening went excellent. It was done because teachers and staff were in there early preparing. They're in mid-season teaching form now. The high school did a fantastic job. Having the 9th graders come in first, then the 9th and 10th graders really made a huge difference. They were really able to drill into the 9th graders, especially new to that building. Walking routes, safety precautions, expectations, bus routes, everything. They did a phenomenal job. It's been very, very good. 3 great days. The schools, as I said, are well-staffed. Kudos to Earl. They look great. And I just, it's such a different feeling to open this year. Such a different feeling. I want to acknowledge this, and I acknowledged it in my phone call to parents this evening. Transportation continues to be very, very difficult for many reasons. Now today, Niagara Falls High School's transportation was the best I've seen it because of a few changes they've made, but it continues to be a struggle. I continue to ask parents that are viewing this to be patient with us. Our team is working on it. Bus driver shortages are an all-time high. I've denied many requests for special transportation. We just can't delay those that are entitled to it. For kids that are on special permission, that's part of the agreement. We're working through it. I do want to acknowledge and not be Pollyanna about this. The transportation continues to be a struggle. I'd be lying to you in the community if I told you that was smooth, and there's many reasons why. A couple of other announcements. Maple Avenue turns 100 years old on Tuesday. Please stop by between 5 and 7 p.m. That's their open house. Tuesday at 5 o'clock. It's Maple Avenue's open house between 5 and 7, and they're going to do a little ceremony for the 100-year birthday. School looks good for 100 years. We are planning a historically black college tour again. This time we're going to do it in the fall. I believe the kids will miss 1 day of school only this time. They're also going to go to the Battle of the Bands at, I think, North Carolina A&T. It was something that they wanted to do. But we're going to do it in the fall because it's kids, you know, may want to go to one of the schools and they'll have more time to get their applications prepared. So that's coming up. I want to publicly thank the board and thank the Bleneva Bond Renaming Committee and the staff at Bond School. It was just a wonderful ceremony. Very proud of it. Everybody did a great job, and that really went well. I want to publicly thank 2 staff members at Harry Abbott School today. And again, this is directly attributable to the fact that Maria and Kevin were able to get cooks and others in the buildings. 2 of our staff members performed the Heimlich on a student today, Trevana Harris and Angela Sapinski. I'll use their names because I'm so proud of them. I know Trevana very well. I was her principal, and she knows me very well. I'll leave it there. But her and Angela, who is also one of my students, performed the Heimlich on a child today, and everything is great. But those 2 are heroes. I told you what a great job that Earl did, seriously. And the icing on the cake for Earl's work with his team was that the Office of Family and Children's Services came in today and toured the CEC, and we are now ready for 3 toddler rooms, meaning that next week 1 and 2-year-olds can start. So 3 of the rooms got certified today. That was no easy feat, and just a comment that came to Earl from the certifier, who's pretty tough. He said, when I saw this in whenever, and I never believed you could get this ready for this rigorous certification. And kudos to Earl and all the gentlemen and ladies who got those rooms ready. So we do have 3 toddler rooms ready now at the CEC, and I think it will allow us to take about 40 1- and 2-year-olds. And I know Maria's new challenge is to fully staff Head Start. So there are a few openings in Head Start board members, just so you know, that's not fully staffed. There are calendars in front of you. They look very good. Please take one. Proud to have that out. And I just want to tell you that it feels really good to have a normal opening that went that smooth this week. I talked about Earl's work and Maria's work. Now it's time for the finance team because the audit starts about 2 weeks. The audit starts in 2 weeks. I think another decision the board's going to have to make at that time, and we'll make a recommendation to you, is how you want the reserve monies laid out, because we are increasing our reserve funds, which is something very to be proud of. There is an audit committee meeting prior to the meeting of the 22nd at 4 o'clock. At that meeting, you will see Drescher and Malecki, you will see the Bonadeo Group, and you will hear our internal claims auditor reports. That's it on the 22nd. Yes, sir.
Did we end up finding enough representation for the, I remember that was something we were thinking,
We're short a community member. We are in need of members of the board, members of the community. I don't want to overstep my role, but you can contact Mr. Petrozzi or Ms. Glasser. If there's a community member and you are listening, I know you watch, if you're interested in becoming part of an audit committee that meets 4 times a year, does a lot of financial oversight. Becky's obviously, and Julie is obviously, they're obviously great leaders. They'll get you up to speed on it, but we do need a community member. And I would say if anybody heard this, or if any board member knows of anybody, to refer that person to Mr. Petrozzi or Ms. Glasser, and we're short one, Rob.
thank you, Mark.
Members of the board, staff, all of you in the audience, please don't pan to the audience. The seats are very full. But those in the viewing audience at home, that concludes all of our reports for this evening. We'll be back together again on the 22nd of September. Thank you very much.
So stay tuned.
That's all I have.
Judy,
Okay, let's go.
Judy,
Say
hold on, wait,
nice to
hold
see
on,
you.
hold on,
Goodbye.
question,
I gotta
folks.
go.
I have a question.
Good luck.
Does anyone know the audit, the board members that are on the audit committee? Judy, Mark? Which board members? Yeah, which board members? Does any, Becky, anyone know which board members?
I know, I think I could tell you.
Nick and I, and Jimmy, right?
Miss Dunn.
Okay, there would
And
be
Ms.
Nick,
Dunn, right?
Jimmy, you two, Clara, and Jimmy, right?
Yep.
That's
Yes,
4.
that's 4. So we're short
No,
one
no,
more.
you only have 4 on the audit committee, right?
You need 5 and 4.
5 board members?
Yep. And you have 4 and 3.
Okay, who wants to, board member, who wants to serve on the audit committee?
Tony, I was blown away by your closing statements today. I hope you enjoy the Bills game.
What game?
Need someone to put on the audit committee. They left. I'll do it.